Here I want to take a moment and talk about is it possible that everyone is keeping quiet is it possible that people just don't want to say it? So I'm going to say it briefly. Food for thought. And when I do some more research on it, I'm going to come back again and be able to tell you based on some research. Now, according to some written, we have a tendency to believe what's in the books, our holy doctrine, and ignore what's written in stone by our ancient ancestors. Ancient, the Nubians, the Cushites, those that came up from, from Africa. Well, it wasn't called Africa then, but those that came up through there and came together to build what we now know as the pyramids, and one would say the Sphinx, far beyond before the pyramids were built, the Sphinx was built. But anyway, we don't want to consider what has been engraved in stone by our ancestors, that when you look at them, they look like your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your mother, your father. Strong resemblance that we have to ignore to keep other folks that fragility from cracking up, I'm just saying. And I'm taking a while to get to the point. But the point is, it is written in stone that our ancestors were far advanced in medicine and in the understanding of genetics and the human body, as well as the cosmos and everything. But they knew all of these things. They knew how to mix stuff up and make things. They knew how to mix up DNA and create. Now, would it be so far-fetched that they perhaps began messing with some things and created people? I'm talking about long before there were white people. So, before there were white people, melanated people were all over the world. Melanated people were worldwide. They were on every continent, where it be from the breaking up of the plates or whatever. I don't want to go into all of that because I don't know. But we were all over. Whatever they call Europe, Australia, South America, all of America, Canada, you name it. The islands, Hawaii, we were all over. Long before there was anything known as someone called white. Okay? So, back on topic. Is it so far-fetched to believe that this mixing up of things, it was written in one of the tombs somewhere, and I have to do my research as I am asking all of you to do your research as well, that it took them about 600 years to remove the melanin to get bright white. I think 300 years to get yellow. And I may have it twisted, I may have missed it. Maybe it was 600, 400, and then 200 years to get a lighter hue, brown, or another hue. They also did some DNA mixing. Now they say that the white happened as a result of people leaving the continent very early and working their way up into the northern parts, and an ice wall formed and they were stuck there, and before that time, before they were able to move about and come back into the warmer areas. So that's said to be a story as well. How much of it is mythology, but there's also some writing in India, engraved in stone, pictures of how they were doing test tube babies. They were in bulbs, and they were creating babies, people. I also visited a few areas where I saw some other things too that were quite interesting. That had me really thinking they were really mixing up genetics. They were really creating all nature of things. So is it so far-fetched to believe that perhaps people may not have a history because they were created? And I believe many know that they were created by Cushites and Nubians. Honor thy mother, thy father, right? Those that created you. And perhaps some other things where they were sent out. Let me say this. We have to open our eyes, people, and do some research. When you make something that didn't have a history or anything, you create something, they come into a world, they have no beginning. They have no history. And so when they traveled around the world and saw the world was mostly brown and black, it probably left them wondering, where did we come from? Perhaps they were made and didn't know how to act and had to be put out because they weren't connected the same way the ancients were connected. And so they were creating, they were maybe wreaking a little havoc on the way things ran, because these people, they didn't have armies and weapons and all of that stuff. They were living by basic principles and universal cosmic type laws, things like that. And then when they created something, they didn't know how to do that. Didn't have that inner voice speaking to them. Could not see things a certain way. Could that be why they were exiled, they were put out? Anyway, quick word, food for thought. I made a video before. I figured I'd come back here and try to add a little more to it, a little more thinking on this. They come from us. And I think it's difficult for them to come to terms with that. that perhaps we created them just as they're creating things and people today, that we created them long ago, and that's why they have no history. Choice here, thank you so much for joining me again for another session of Choice Spirit. Namaste.